button. All right, we'll get going a little bit early. Thank you. That is wonderful. Why don't we start with introductions, to say who you are and maybe what groups you're involved in, and we'll kind of zoom along so we can get Dan started in a reasonable time. Bill, you're muted. Bill Grayson, you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Bill Grayson. I just am an interested party. I've always been interested in saving the environment, I guess, and rights for people, all people, not just a select few. And that's it.
Thank you much. Carol, you're muted. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Carol Clapham. I'm part of the environmental work group of Indivisible. Jeanette's also on that committee. And I'm very worried about our climate and feel we need to get moving fast.
Cool, thank you. Tree, you're muted. You want to introduce yourself? Sorry, I'm having a lining up here.
Sure.
Here we go.
I'm
Sorry,
Tree
bang.
Sullivan. And Jill, we've liked looking at your hand on the thing too. So that's
Oh,
good.
sorry. I'm trying to
I'm
reorganize
kidding.
myself here, so.
I'm part of Plastic Free Delaware Sierra Club, and I'm part of the ecology team at the University of Delaware, Beazer School. And we're really worried about climate change in general. And I apologize in advance. I have a 7 o'clock, so I only can be on for a half an hour, but wanted to be on while I could.
Great. Well, you and Dee have to jump off at 7 o'clock, but we'll get started. Thanks for joining. Richard, you're muted. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Richard Trask, and I've been a member of the Sierra Club for a while. I'm still on the Sierra Club political committee, but I'm also now involved with Plastic Free Delaware. It looks like plastic is the new coal. It's really contributing to climate change as well as all the other things that are contributing to climate change. So it's something that has been under the radar a little bit, and I think we need to look at.
Cool. Thank you. Nancy, you want to introduce yourself, and you're muted, dear?
Hi, I'm Nancy Waller, and I'm involved with Indivisible on the Environmental Committee and very interested in the topic for tonight's meeting.
Super. Gary, you're eating your dinner, but you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
You and your
My dog is introducing herself too. It's Gary
Cool.
Johnson. I'm now out at Kendall, no longer in the Highlands area, but I'm particularly interested in this topic tonight, and I'd like to hear what the status of things are and where it's going.
Cool. Thanks. And you have blossoms and stuff in your background. That is very cool.
That's Mary Page Evans, a local artist.
Very nice. Very nice.
That is
Sally,
true.
you want to?
That's in our
unmute
living room,
yourself.
and I keep that as our background.
That's quite lovely. Sally, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sally Butner. I'm a member of Indivisible's environmental group and also convener of my church's Earth Care Task Force, and I'm just really concerned about climate change.
And that's with Westminster Presbyterian Church?
That's right.
Cool. Natalie, you want to introduce yourself and unmute?
Yeah, hi, I'm Natalie McKinney. I'm also a member of Indivisible Environmental Work Group. I also serve on the board of Healthy Foods for Healthy Kids, which was our presenter last month.
Yes, very informative.
And just like the rest of you, concerned about the environment and climate and frustrated that we're not doing enough.
I'm just going through my list. It's in my order. Sherry, you want to introduce yourself? Unmute, please.
I'm Sherry Evans Stanton. I'm the director of the Sierra Club Delaware chapter. And I have on my Act Now climate shirt. I don't know if anybody can see that. And sorry, I'm going to go off camera so I can eat some dinner.
There you go. Everybody's eating dinner at the same time. Peggy, you want to unmute and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Peggy Schultz, and I'm facilitator of a coalition in support of offshore wind called Power. And keen to hear this presentation tonight. I never imagined that lawnmowers were such an issue, but they seem to be.
Thank you, Peggy. And that's with the League of Women Voters, correct, Peggy?
Yep,
Are you driving?
yep.
Rachel, you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Rachel Gregoire. I am with the Delaware Working Families Party. I am their legislative organizer, and we have a particular interest in environmental justice legislation, among other things. And I am a native Californian and have watched lawn care become a pretty big hot button issue in environmentalism in California, and people changing the way that they do their landscaping and how they either design it or maintain it. So I think this is a really interesting topic tonight.
Thank you for joining us. Judy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I think I'm the only Judy. Do you mean me?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. Hi, I'm Judy Winters. I'm a co-leader of a group called the Eco Team at Lifelong Learning locally. I'm real interested in lawn care and getting better apparatus out there.
Cool, thank you. So we are recording, everybody knows, and a couple of folks have to jump off, including Dee at 7 o'clock. So I think you all know that Green Drinks is an international organization that was started by a bunch of Brits because they were drinking in a pub and everybody was chit-chatting and doing their thing. And they thought, wow, this is a great idea. Let's have this go international, and have everybody get together and have, I don't know if you can see me, a green drink. So we used to meet at Galuccio's, but with the pandemic, actually it works out better because people don't have to go out in the cold and nasty weather that we have. So a guy named Phil Gross had started this a couple of years ago, and then Dee and I kind of jumped on top of it and followed Charlie Garlow's fine example downstate. So we have some wonderful groups who are our co-hosts, including the Sierra Club. Thank you, Sherry, while you're eating your dinner. Plastic Free Delaware, Preservation Delaware, and Dee Durham, who was with, is a council person with the Newcastle County Council. And a big shout out to the Citizens Climate Lobby, who is all about a carbon fee and dividend. I'd like to say we're a nonpartisan group, so we welcome all points of view. So we're going to have fun chatting and introducing ourselves. If you would like to be on my mailing list and get a notice, please email me at jill.gomer@gmail.com. And please like us on Facebook because that generates more hits. And before I forget, let me pull up my other little thing. Put December 20th on your calendar for the next Green Drinks. And that's going to be a guy who has a bunch of jobs at the University of Delaware, Jeremy Firestone. And he is going to talk about public attitudes and human behavior regarding offshore wind power development. So that should be super interesting. So without further ado, let me introduce Dan Mabe, who is the founder of the American Green Alliance. And that's a company that aims to help people transition from lower impact landscaping to greener options. So I have to say, I was reading, Charlie Garlow, welcome. I was reading several articles in the, I guess it was the Washington Post and also the Wilmington paper, while my whole neighborhood was abuzz with lawn mowers and my own yard included, and leaf blowers. So I contacted Mr. Mabe, and here we go. So what I'm going to do after this, I'll send out a bunch of websites so you can read some of those articles as well. So why don't you kick it off, Dan? Our one-eyed pirate, off you go.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jill. Nice to see you on camera. Dee as well. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your evening. I'm Dan Mabe, and I just want to let you know it's not a Halloween costume. Still, I'm recovering from retinal detachment surgery. So what I'm going to do is get right into it because I know some people have to leave. I'm going to do screen share. Please bear with me. Okay, give me a second here.
Is this being recorded?
Yes, Charlie, it is. So don't say anything that you want anybody to hear.
Okay, well, I've already been introduced, so we'll go to the next slide. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, so the American Green Zone Alliance, yeah, we're a leader in low impact grounds maintenance strategies. Our mission is to prudently, and I want to stress prudently and responsibly transition the grounds maintenance industry to quieter, more sustainable practices. Most of our audience is commercial crews who service municipalities, schools, and residential properties, although we do have a residential initiative. Some of the ways that we do that are listed here. One is our Green Zone certification. It's a standard that we created that has been adopted by universities, cities, school districts, and it's becoming quite, and even private property owners. So that's a Green Zone certification. I have a few examples of that. Number 2 is our service professional service pro certification. That is working directly with the men and women who use the tools and manage the crews and do the work that beautifies our neighborhoods. It acts as a behavior modification model. And then third on the list here is AFTC. It stands for Ags Field Tested Certified. When we started to expand our Green Zone model, we started to understand that not all manufacturers told the truth and made safe and reliable products. And we learned the hard way. That's why we had to create sort of an independent testing mechanism to make sure that when people invest tens of thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands for some of these projects, that they're going to get a return on their investment and be able to uphold aesthetic standards. Okay, so coming from the gas industry myself, when I was a very young kid, even before 10 years old, the man of the house where I was a high volume gardener. I spent summers and weekends doing this line of work and even owned my own gas company as a young adult. And so I know firsthand what it's like to be a proprietor in this industry. So AGSA was basically created by and through the lens of gas operators. Our top 10 impacts of gas operations listed here at the top and in the center, noise. That is the first thing that everybody notices. Of course, we have the emissions. There's the health risk primarily to the workforce. And then lesser known things are the lower left toxic and solid waste components, for example, which are a result of maintaining small gas engines cradle to grave. So just an example of noise. This can be any one of us. We can be indoors, we can be outdoors. This is the way I'm situated in my neighborhood. We're kind of very close to one another. And then here comes the neighbors' gas companies that maintain the yards. And this is what that noise profile is going to look like when you are sitting either indoors or outdoors at your home. If they were electric or incorporating electric tools, it would look a little bit more like this. So to expand on noise a little bit more, what we're going to understand is on average, commercial electric tools are going to be lower in decibel level ratings than their gas counterparts. EPA, NIOSH, ANSI, OSHA, their thresholds for safe work environments, what they've determined is many of the gas tools exceed those thresholds, and they require that hearing protection that a lot of the workforce unfortunately does not use. Electric tools are going to be are just at that threshold or lower, but there's something even more to explain here. It's the frequency component. I really want to stress this. Gas tools operate at low frequencies. That means it travels long distances and penetrates barriers versus electric equipment that is going to operate with higher frequencies. So I want to use the mosquito analogy that Joy from Cha-Cha group out here, she so eloquently put this. You hear a mosquito, it's right next to your ear, it's loud. But as that mosquito distances from your ear 8 inches, a foot and a half, 2 feet, you can't hear it anymore or barely, and you can't see it or find it. So I'm going to give you an example of what that looks and sounds like with a very large piece of electric equipment. This is a 74-inch industrial riding lawnmower. It's what handles the workload at our Green Zone Unified School District. And take a listen. So as you can see, as that piece of equipment distances from you, that noise profile drops off significantly. Therefore, electric on average is going to be significantly quieter and less sound pressure than their gas counterparts. Here's something that I used to do when I was in the gas industry. I'm not proud of it, but it's something that does happen. This is what we call the parking lot tune-ups, especially for the operators that are on thin margins and don't always have the wherewithal and the resources to bring their tools in to be repaired at the shop.
We have the filter right off the carburetor. They get a little gas and oil on it. We put that into the gas, swish it around. You can see how dirty it gets.
This is the process of which you extend the life of the filter.
Right.
What happens to this gas that now has the grit, the grease, the dirt inside of it?
Normally we can pour it in some dirt, or we throw it away in a trash can.
It could end up in a landfill as well, or poured into the bushes.
Sure.
Well, that's Jeff, and he has converted his fleet 50%, which is actually quite an achievement. So while he's lowering the noise and the emissions, he's also benefiting from not creating a lot of the solid waste and that toxicity that's involved of maintaining the small gas engines. So coming from the industry myself and shadowing crews here in Los Angeles, which believe me is ground zero for these operations, we just are conservative when we say one worker can account for 50 pieces of solid and toxic waste that would end up in landfills. And then most importantly here, we've been advocating environmental justice for this workforce for almost 20 years. I remember giving a presentation and we brought this up, and I was pulled aside about 6 years ago from a couple of cities managers, and they told me pretty much like this: don't you ever show these slides again at these workshops. And it's now changed, but here's a city that really prides themselves on sustainability. In fact, they think they might be the most sustainable city in the United States. yet their workers are still using these tools and actually buying their own masks that are rated to protect them from particulate matter that are 2.5 microns and smaller. So the workforce, even though sometimes they don't want anybody saying, don't worry about my health, they don't want us to worry about their health, coming from the industry myself, knowing what it's done to my health, definitely one of our top reasons. Okay, so here's the solutions. Here's some examples of institutional AGSA green zone certification. This is South Pasadena. It's our first entire green zone city. And how did we do it? Well, we worked with their public works director, their vendor, they have a contractor, and we basically earmarked one of their largest parks in the city, Garfield Park, 10 acres, 6 acres of turf. And we were able to basically convert this park under our certification standard. We did the cost benefit analysis. We did the workload feasibility analysis, and it came out so favorably that we were able to set an action plan with the city to green zone all of the properties and to help them become an entire green zone city. The standard for this particular green zone is all routine maintenance is done with people-powered and battery electric tools for routine maintenance. It was a big deal. We had city council, the mayor, even members of Congress and California State Senate were present at this ceremony. And just to let people know, this isn't for show. It really is for dough. It is now written into their RFP language that any company that wants to do business in the city of South Pasadena would need to be AGSA certified or equivalent, and they would definitely need to uphold the AGSA Green Zone standard. So we do this not based on emotion and nothing political. We're very data driven. I knew early on when we did this, we had to really prove out the economic benefits, but we developed a software called ELF, stands for Environmental Landscape Footprint. We've done this with our national nonprofit collaborator, Quiet Communities. Want to definitely acknowledge Jamie Banks of Quiet Communities, who we do a lot of our work with. We developed this software that measures on all of our projects what the CO2 reductions are, the particulate matter, the noise profile, and again, the solid and toxic waste and the cost benefit analysis. So definitely when we go to projects, we're able to measure these while we're doing the conversions. It can be so granular, we can even break it down by tool and tell people which tools are creating the most CO2, if you care about that the most, if you're more caring about the toxicity and the ground ozone and the human and worker health exposure and quality of life, it's going to be those smaller tools. So definitely it's very granular and we can give you that snapshot. We've done entire golf courses, state parks, and then moving on to other solutions. Service Pro certification. So what's very important to us is these folks that you see right here. I would call this overkill and ridiculous, but am I going to hold these individuals responsible? No. What are they doing? Well, they're trying to do their job to the best of their ability to give us what they think that we want, our aesthetic expectation that's been in place for the past 4 decades. And that is everything stripped, clean, perfectly. We call it hyper manicured landscape look. It's very important not to demonize this workforce in this process. This is where we're making the best progress, when we're able to embrace the workforce, empower them with information, and make them stakeholders and part of the team, if you will. 2 of the individuals in this picture are in their early 70s. This is an aging workforce. And definitely when they're able to convert to electric tools, it's better for their health. It's lighter, less vibration. And we've worked with national companies, local companies. We're out there on the front lines, working with these crews, comparing the gas to the electric. We don't embellish. If the electric's not as powerful, we tell them the truth. And then we try to find a solution for them of how they can use the electric tools effectively and still make a living. This one I really like because Cadre went against the big guys, national, huge regional players for a very lucrative account. And it's a business park. It's still one of their most lucrative accounts to this day besides Sony Studios. And they were able to obtain this account with their AXA certification and the investment in this green fleet that you see here in front of you. I'm happy to say after 3 years, they have already reached their ROI on all these tools and they're still going strong. It's important though, they did it through our process, a structured process that gives them the tools and the information needed to do this correct. We have basically certification. It's online, it's in English, it's in Spanish. We also do live certifications as well, but definitely it's needed to help them shepherd through this transition. And here's an example of what all the individuals and companies get. And why do we really need this? Well, here's one reason why. This is a company that contacted us. We gave them as much time as we possibly could, pro bono. We encouraged them to go online, take the course. We said we would follow up with a live session and we would really educate their crews and management how to do this. So they forewent that and went and invested about $12,000 in battery tools. And we got a call from them about 6 months, 8 months later and said, help, can you help us fix this? And I'm like, wow. So when we went there, this is what we ran into. This is dangerous, first and foremost, safety-wise. And then second of all, they're not going to be able to cash in on any warranty that these tools hold, because this is just straight out abuse. And this is not from being bad people, it's just not knowing what to do and not valuing the very small cost of education up front. So this is what an ideal charging setup looks like. This is the city of Glendale. This is one of their 8 green zones. There's 2 charging stations for those 8 zones. And this is typically what it looks like when our education is involved. Now, batteries, what do we do with them? What's happening? This is a concern. It's a legitimate concern. It's a huge concern of ours. We like to do things responsibly. We're hoping to keep up with this. Here's an example of some Model 3 Tesla cells, these cylindrical cells. We actually took these used cells and put them inside this golf course mower that you see here. It's been operating just about flawlessly for almost a year and a half. Those repurposed used cells should get about another 7 or 8 years in this application. The thing is though, it's just now coming online, this economy for repurposed and recycling lithium cells. Definitely, we hope that that will also scale, as does the demand of this battery push, if you will. And this is why we generally say you don't need regulation. You need basically resources, engagement. So coming down the stretch here, when I mentioned what is our ideal expectation, let's just say all of us here tonight, when the gardener comes or you do it yourself, what is the expectation of what your yard should look like and how much of the ecology should you sacrifice with that expectation? I feel we need a paradigm shift, and I want to thank Tony Lund of Quiet Princeton, who I have a great relationship with, for dedicating a few of these slides. He calls this plastic landscaping. We call it hyper manicured, but in the end, it's the same. It's neat. There's not a thing out of place, but to us, it's bland, and we know that it's void of ecology and that a lot of conventional stuff had to go into it to make it look this way. And again, when you don't plant natives, you're going to have to rely on chemicals to keep things going. Here's an example of what I feel is a very beautiful property. And oh boy, don't panic, there's leaves on the turf. Okay, fine. It's fall. Look at these beautiful textures. Look at these beautiful colors. This homeowner allows the property maintenance person to come and mulch those leaves. They don't need to be blown off of the grass with hurricane force winds, if you will. So this is an example of what can still look nice. This is not going to lower people's property values, but it's more in tune with nature and ecology in an urban setting. So the landscaper, basically, sometimes they just really don't know this information, and they don't know what people want, but they've been conditioned to think that people expect this that you see pictured here. Homeowners, sometimes we're busy. Sometimes we don't even know what we want. We rely on the service provider to tell us what's good. So this is why the education is key. Communication after the education between the property owner and the service provider is critical. Things that we can do tomorrow: stop or reduce the use of gas leaf blowers, mulch leaves with a mower, use rakes and brooms in selected areas. Good luck, but I do it. Use electric blowers, but use them efficiently and judiciously. We have a very strong component of trying to get the industry to not just rely on blowers in general. Homeowners, please consider paying your gardeners more to go electric or lower impact practices. Gardeners, we know maybe none are here today, but our message to the gardening community, landscape maintenance community, is for them to consider how important they are to us. And we value them, and we value the work they do, but we also want them to know how critical they are in what they do and how that impacts the quality of life for our communities. And then finally, we created the Residential Green Zone Initiative, basically taking the examples and successes of our institutional green zone projects and just asking homeowners as a call to action, self-regulated, if you will, to create green zones at home. Here's just some examples of families who have done it. And that has been the presentation for tonight. I hope I didn't go too fast. I just really wanted to make sure I got as much information for the people leaving early. I'm going to stop share, and with that, I would be more than happy to answer questions.
Thank you. That is a huge amount of information. That is fabulous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As you said, let's throw it open to our participants and see what kinds of questions we have. Just jump right in. Don't.
I got a question.
Go.
What do you say to people who say, oh, electric leaf blowers are not strong enough?
I would say that's true, but it's true for certain times a year. In the Northeast, we have to practically allow for gas leaf blower use in the fall in our green zones who have chosen to do that. Some have actually implemented more of the mulching practices that we want them to do and cut down on it drastically. But you're right. In the fall, we would say that's true if the aesthetic expectation is going to be what it traditionally is. But for spring and summertime, we feel that the top commercial electric models on the market are adequate to handle those workloads anywhere in the country.
What are the best electric equipment? Still, or?
We really don't have a personal opinion on that, and I'm not trying to duck it like a smooth politician. We do remain neutral. We just test the tools, and then we give people that raw data, the X's and O's. Steel is one of an AFTC tested brand. In fact, they happen to be, their commercial line was the first commercial line that did come out. So they do make some good stuff. If you like that brand, perhaps you could look at their BGA 100 or their BGA 200 models. For blowers, that is, Charlie.
Okay.
Yes. Sally?
I'm wondering, do you have operations here around the mid-Atlantic, and do you have any pointers for how to connect lawn services?
We have in the Northeast AGSA certified service pros, but nothing in Delaware yet. We are trying to get them listed on our site, get those zip codes and those cities that they're operating in, and make sure that that's a resource. And if we do find new ones, we usually throw out a social media post, if you will. But they're far and few between. There's only going to be roughly a little over 200 dedicated electric companies out of, I would say, 600,000 registered landscape maintenance and installation companies.
Thank you.
Judy?
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to know a little, at least a round number about the difference in the cost of one leaf blower that's gas versus one that's not.
Absolutely. On average, the electric is going to be about twice as much as gas. But there is a pathway to return on investment. And I'll just give you a model that we use here in Southern California. We know with the cost of our gas and even just conventional, not even synthetic two-stroke oil that's poured into the gas, and then they have preventative maintenance and then repair maintenance on those gas leaf blowers. Let's talk about the gas leaf blower first, Judy. The average cost for a really nice, like a Echo PB770T, it's going to be around $550 plus tax. So you're looking close to $600 upfront cost. Well, it's going to cost you, based on everything that I just mentioned, it's going to cost these operators through just a normal seasonal work season, which is almost, all year round here. It's going to cost them anywhere from $1,000 to $1,150 a year to operate that gas blower, just one. So it's going to take about 2.5 years for them to get an ROI on the electric equivalent, which to us would be the blower, 2 chargers, and 2 backpack batteries. And that's going to be based on kilowatt hour cost of 15 cents per kilowatt hour. And the backpack batteries are rated at 1,300 watt hours. And we know that there's 1,000 kilowatt hours in one, there's one kilowatt hour. So it's based on that formula. So just to put it, I know I'm sorry, I just wanted to really give a good explanation, but on average here in Southern California, it takes them 2 to 2.5 years to get their ROI, but there is a pathway to it. Sherry?
Hi, so I'm hearing what you're saying about lawn services. Do you have any recommendations or suggested brands if we're as a homeowner want to switch to an electric mower?
Yeah, I would go to our site, go to the AFTC page. I would say, we independently tested some. We know that Ego and Steel and Makita are pretty good brands, if you will. But again, we are brand neutral. We encourage you to do your own homework, your research. There are some brands out there that are quite amazing at marketing. And if you do your research, I want everyone to go to, let's just say, electric lawnmower recalls, because there have been some issues with some companies, and they've done a pretty good job of covering it up, but they've had safety issues. There's stuff catching on fire. And so I don't look at, on average, electric statistically is going to be much safer than gas right now. And we stand by that, but we do encourage everyone to do their homework and always research for recalls. And then everybody, please read the warranty before you purchase of all these different companies that you're considering. Some are limited, some are genuine, and really make sure that you do your homework on the warranties and any kind of recalls they've had in the past.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I would say, Bill, you chimed in there. Yeah, Ego. I mean, we are brand neutral, but with all due respect, even their homeowner stuff has performed quite well in commercial situations that we know about. So you can't go wrong there. Just make sure you register the product with all of these brands, by the way. Sometimes you'll forgo registering the product, you'll forget, something might happen, and then you go back. And if you're not registered within a certain timeline, then you're out of luck. I'm sorry, Lynn? You're on mute, Lynn.
I've had some problems with equipment, and they keep changing the battery configuration around. So you end up with a trimmer with one battery, and
Is that Lynn? Lynn, is that green? Who is that?
Who is that? I had something. It was called I can't think of the name of it. It was from Home Depot, and they have different batteries. They went from a 40 something, and then they changed the batteries around. So now I have a trimmer that I can't really use, and I have a little chainsaw thing that has a different configuration battery. So I have all these chargers all over the place to keep different batteries. I was trying to get everybody the same, and it just doesn't seem to work that way.
Well, I'm sorry you experienced that, and that's why. And I think when you look at the bigger brands who have uniformity, Steel is not going to change their voltage. They're just not. I don't think Ego is either. Makita definitely isn't. Husqvarna, no, they're not going to change their voltages. There are companies, I'm not going to mention their names, but please do your research. And you can research 80 volt, 82 volt, 60 volt, and 40 volt. All those voltages are from one company, and that has been a complaint that they'll make a line and then they'll be like, okay, you know what? We're going to go a different direction and make an entirely different line where it's not compatible. And that's what you run into. So that is where, we just encourage people to do that research.
Along the same lines, then, I noticed that all these batteries, they tell you not to, but they do come apart. And I imagine there's just a bunch of cells in there, and that's the way they build them up to the different voltages. Are there companies around where you can send your battery and get them rebuilt so you don't have to throw them away?
I love it. Lynn, I love these questions. Okay, so if it's out of warranty, then yes. If it's out of warranty, we are all, because I know I can repair batteries myself. Basically, one or two of those 18650 cylindrical cells will go bad sometimes, and it's basically ruining the entire battery, and just a cell or two needs to be replaced and you're good to go. So definitely that's another thing that we're trying to encourage the manufacturers to make those batteries more accessible, more repairable. And then two, we're trying to find more of those repair mechanisms. There's a couple out here in Southern California, but definitely not enough. But don't open up. We tell people just don't open any lithium battery unless you're properly trained. But you shouldn't, and especially if it's not out of warranty. If it's out of warranty, perhaps you might be able to find a repair resource instead of buying a new one. Judy, you had your hand up again, or did you just have it up?
No, I don't have my hand up.
Okay, well, it's there, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't up again. No problem.
I think Sandy's question, am I unmuted? Sandy's question about the affordability for a small lawn care company?
Yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue, no doubt about it. This is why AGSA is saying out here, and we testified in front of the state Senate, with this bill that's been so basically published across the country. And, we are neutral on the bill. We understand that we are very air quality challenged here. But we said if the regulation if it's just going to go through, please provide resources. They provided something. We've been fighting for resources for this industry for over a decade. And finally, something came down with this regulation. We feel it needs to be more, but with the small companies, definitely you're going to, in my opinion, want to have some resources for them to help trade in or get the electric equipment at a lower cost. And then also you're going to want definitely some type of information and training for them as well. But for the small companies, definitely it can be an issue to ask them to invest in suites and fleets of electric tools. So something everyone should think about. Natalie.
Do you think there's any possibility that there would be funding for some of this conversion through the new infrastructure bill?
I think so. I think what New York is I think tapping into, and others, we see a lot of activity, and basically it just used to be, okay, climate, and of course climate is extremely important. Our ELF reports reflect that. But with lawn and garden, if you're looking on a global scale, CO2 is not the huge issue with lawn and garden operations. It's more about human health and community toxicity and ozone level and things like that. But what we have seen is that they're allowing, based on a lot of the CO2 that they produce, which is still a lot for how little the engines are. It's like a huge, they're very, very, very polluting. They're like ants in that respect. Big bang for your buck for CO2 pollution for how small those engines are. But we are seeing various funding mechanisms now become eligible to help with this industry. So you're gonna have to see what's there for you guys and see where you can possibly apply for and or place some of this under perhaps.
So kind of on that note, I mean, it's it's like electric cars. I have a 12-year-old car, which I will hang on to for another couple of months until they come out with the big bang with all the very cool electric cars. It seems like there's going to be, people are going to use the, lawn places are going to use their equipment to its natural, time of death and then reinvest in electric. Is there a time frame that there's an electric, and how do we spur that on?
Well, that is one strategy to replace the gas with electric as it ages, and definitely need to do that. The other option, again, is if you had some funding, you can buy that gas tool like we do here in California, and then it goes on the chopping block for destruction, never to be used again. And then the operators pay like 50% less on that electric tool. Just for the small operators, though, even that, there's going to be ongoing costs if they're not able to properly implement the electric equipment, and it becomes a big bust and failure for them. The buying new batteries outside of an initial program could be quite costly as well. So again, I just want to stress the training component, helping them learn how to set up the infrastructure to maximize the cradle to grave cycle life potential of their electric fleets. It's absolutely essential.
Did somebody have a question about how to publicize concept to a condo management company and part of the clean air standards for state legislatures?
Or the civic association in your neighborhood.
Yeah, we work with a lot of nonprofits and community action groups, and there's a lot of information on quietcommunities.org. And let me see if I can type that in, everybody. It's tough right now. Hold on a second. Let me see.
Is that just what let me see if I can do it. Is it just quiet communities.org?
Yeah, quietcommunities.org.
Let me see if I can do this. Quiet, QUIE. I spell that right?
I cannot see yet, but.
All right. Is there a space in between, or just
No. It's basically www.quietcommunities.org. But if you guys typed in quietcommunities.org all together, the site will come up.
All right. I just sent it along, guys. My thing auto-corrected to put a space in there, so forget that. I mean, just do it without the space.
So, what I like about Quiet Communities is, we've been working together since 2013. And, I explained it. If you take the pitchforks and torches approach, and we're all frustrated. I live with the noise every day. It's been especially challenging with this condition. I explained, let's work together to get the data. Let's get the data on the impacts and to the environment, to the workers. Let's get the data, for the transitioning, and let's run a data-driven campaign. And that's what we've done with Quiet Communities. So I think you'll find a lot of useful information there. And then, of course, you guys will find should find a lot of useful information on our website as well, of how to approach the HOAs, the boards, and your local municipalities. We are quite busy right now, almost can barely keep up with the demand of getting together with people and introducing how to do this.
I mean, I just want to jump in here and say, I think there's a growing awareness in Delaware about the whole native plant thing and then not having the super duper manicured yard. And, you know, that all kind of fits together. And I imagine the lawn services don't like that because they, you know, it's easier to come in and make everything all clean and blow everything away than it is to kind of have that subtlety. But I think that, and so some of the you know, the Delaware Nature Society, for example, would, you know, salute that idea of not having a, you know, a super manicured with lots of, you know, not native plants. Say a little bit more, you talked about the cost benefit analysis and looking at the health issues of workers, because a lot of these folks are, you know, people of color, and, you know, so that you look at the health benefits to get the data-driven stuff, I don't know whether there's any kind of, whether people are concerned about noise. I mean, it bothers me, but I don't know if there's a noise pollution quotient. How do you put all that stuff together to get a cost benefit analysis?
Well, our cost benefit analysis, we've always tried to factor in the peripheral issues with health, hospital visits, you know, things that are damaging to the community. But every time we've tried, it's just been like, it's been swept aside. So what ADSA has done, our cost benefit analysis is just tools operating gas versus tools operating electric. We are aware of those other costs to our society, to human beings, to nature, but we have not, Jill, quantified those in dollar amounts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the ongoing issues of the externalities of pollution. You know, I mean, our what is it? I'll think of it. Group of people that regulates fell out of my head. I mean, they just look at the cost of electricity per kilowatt hour. They don't look at whether it's generated by, you know, coal-fired plants and what the, you know, the impact on health is. It's just not part of their legislative requirement. Public Service Commission is what I was trying to think of.
And that's, you know, and we operate in this world, and we've done a pretty good job of appealing to a very broad spectrum of organizations and people involved in this whole thing. And we feel we've really made something that is going to be palatable for everybody. And with the eventual goal is to just be as low impact, meaningfully low impact as possible. And I just want to reiterate what you said. We're working with a lot of groups, the pollinator groups. We've always, we have what we call organic green zones established. And we're going to be doing more of those. But we really had to tackle the intensive gas use head on, because no one else frankly would. But it's not going to happen with electric tools. Electric tools just aren't going to be the answer and the substitute and the savior of this. To your point, it's going to take that holistic approach of again, the pollinating, the ecology, planting the natives, and finding a different expectation, if you will, that not necessarily means we have to settle for blight, but definitely to be more ecologically minded and sound when maintaining our urban yards.
I have a question. With my Ego mower, the battery for it, what's the best way to maintain it during the off season when you're not using it?
Well, it's a great question. Just Bill, Bill, how
Yes.
hot does it get in your neck of the woods in the summer, by the way?
Well, it's in Delaware, so I don't know, it gets into the 90s during the summer.
With some nice humidity, right?
Probably moderate humidity, I would imagine.
Okay. I'm going to start with summertime, and then we'll go into winter. Summertime, you want to store all batteries in a well-ventilated, temperature-controlled space. You don't want to store them in a hot shed or even a sweltering garage. You really want to get those batteries in the summertime in the coolest place possible to charge and store. That's one. That is going to help a lot. So if you're in the 90s, you're in that zone where, yes, you need to think about that. For the winter, you're going to drain the battery down to like 30, 40%, and then you store it at 30, 40%. I do believe that Ego's BMS, battery management system, has something in it where if you store that battery at 100% and it's just sitting there not being used, it will get warm. Okay. And people are like, why is this getting warm? Well, it's actually discharging itself down to its optimal storage percentage. So a lot of these batteries will automatically do it. I encourage you to go back to your operating manual, because I know that they didn't have it originally in all of their models and years, but you may have that feature in your battery management system with your Ego product. So I would go back and research that. But in general, we just say 50% is fine, and then put them in winter storage.
Okay.
Judy.
Hey, this time I have a question. So one time I offered to buy a leaf blower for my lawn care people. And he said, oh, he knew all about that and they weren't strong enough. You could never equal the power and all that kind of stuff. But I believe you could come up with a better case for gifting a leaf blower, and maybe a community or a small group of us would raise the funds, whatever that is, to buy a leaf blower for our lawn care people. Do you think that's a goofy idea? It's because they have to learn so much about how to maintain them and
well, some of them are very intuitive and they can make it work. But, when you're spending on these backpack batteries upwards of $1,400 a piece, you're going to want them trained enough to protect your investment.
Okay.
I mean, but it's not a goofy idea because we're doing it here. We have so we've set up co-ops. There's like these little green zone clusters where one homeowner will house all the equipment. They use the same gardener, and the gardener comes and basically just picks up the equipment and uses it at a house or two, and then puts it back on the chargers. And that homeowner is just giving access to the gardener, and then he goes and does the little homes immediately around them. Another thing that they're doing is, and these are people that use the same gardener who's been around a long time, they can trust. The gardener is investing in just one set of the equipment, one kit set, which is the tool, the battery, the charger. The homeowners are buying the additional batteries and storing them on site at their home. And those batteries are to handle the extra workload and energy that the gardener is going to need. So the battery bank is what the homeowner invests in, and the tool is what the gardener invests in. So there's a little idea there that you guys might possibly be able to do. But it is working because we're helping to set it up sometimes in little pockets.
So what's the most efficient way to talk about this? Like get on your site or the site you gave us to educate like-minded people?
Yeah, like I know these companies and these individuals are busy. They think, oh, hogwash and all this stuff. But honestly, the online course is really, it's good. It gives them all of the information they need. And if they sign up, if a small business signs up, we give them a live session after they've taken that course, a complimentary live session. We show them the Apex manufacturers, although again, we always tell them you're free to go and buy what you want. But we show them specific examples and give them an extra layer of information and education, if you will, to help make this successful. The blowers, they're exactly right. They're going to lose on average 20 to 25% work production rate based on the most powerful, ridiculous overkill gas leaf blowers that exist on the market today. And I'm talking outside of fall conditions. In our opinion, they should be able to, if a homeowner were to buy a commercial blower and say, when you come to my house, we always say the property owner, Judy, is ultimately says what goes. They're the ones that own the property. They can say, would you please, no cost out of your pocket, use this and use it all year long, 10 months out of the year. And then the 2 months that fall comes around, I'm allowing you to just do a couple of big cleanups and or 2 or 3 cleanups using the gas stuff. So it's happening like that as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I can see that as a quicker path and spreading the word, hopefully. But I have to find some like-minded people. I haven't had the discussion with folks that live around me, so.
Sure.
But thank you for those ideas and the possibilities.
Sure.
Yeah.
Dan, I made the observation, if you can get a 2-year return on your investment, that's a 50% return on the investment. That's better than anything I have in my stock portfolio. How can we work together to say investors like me who might have a little extra money would be glad to have only half of that 50% return on investment, and the other half would go to the folks with the lawn service?
Yeah, I mean, that good point. If you know, it's just the caveat is if they take care of the tools, they definitely need to take care of those tools and get them to that year 2, 2.5, sometimes 3, depending on what the tool it is. But you bring up a good point there. And look, Charlie, I started an all-electric business in the mid 2000s, and I didn't have any of this incredible stuff that exists today. I made a profitable business model out of it. And in fact, the demand was so high, I started to bootstrap my own lithium batteries together to use with the equipment that was on the market because it just wasn't good enough. So, I wish I had what they had now, but if they make the investment and if anybody offset that cost to them, it should become a reasonable proposition for them. And if that's a bear that I see, I think I see that bear, Charlie. I like that. That bear right there. That's a cool picture.
That's me.
Are you the bear?
No, I'm the other guy.
I hope you didn't kill that bear.
He's very much with us. So Dan, what do you think? What's the life expectancy of an electric mower versus a gas mower? Maintenance ought to be less on a electric mower, yes?
Absolutely. Maintenance frequency is 1/130th, 1/140th, depending on the tool. And if it's residential, if it's commercial. But let me give you the worst case scenario first, Charlie. There's been some manufacturers whose stuff lasted less than a year. And even if it was replaced, and it wasn't replaced fast enough with some of these companies, very disappointing. Again, we're not going to name names, but it has put a huge strain on projects, even to the point where we had to go out of pocket to save a couple of projects. So worst case scenario, less than a year. Best case scenario, somebody mentioned steel early on. This is not us giving steel any favoritism, but we do have our oldest commercial green zone established nearly 9.5 years ago. And there's batteries from that company still being used. Now, are those battery original run times what they were? No. But there is some cobbled together with duct tape blowers and original batteries being used. That's best case scenario. That was one of our projects. We were able to oversee everything. So I would say on average, you can expect 4 to 5 years on these batteries if they're taken care of properly. For the larger mowers and those platforms, we've seen best case scenario where they're going on 8 years, and they're being used in municipal settings.
Great to me.
Yeah, and again, you know, it all depends on how things are used and the intensity of that workload. But you should get 4 to 5 years on these things, especially homeowners. If you're putting them away for the season, because they're used all year long in the lower 48, especially here in Southern California. My homeowner stuff, and I don't have grass, but I do have to use the blower because we have a lot of fire issues and we have to be in compliance, and it's just not realistic with a rake and a broom all the time. But I have a blower that's 8 years old, original battery, and it's used decently.
And are you going to tell us what the brand is on that?
I don't think so. Not on a recorded line. But if anybody wants to contact me offline, sure.
So there's so much, change and new equipment and new research on batteries and cars and all sorts of renewables. Do you see that happening in the lawn equipment arena as well?
Absolutely. It's a renaissance. At the GIE show, I could not go because I couldn't fly because of the gas bubble that's still in my right eye. I know that there's some really interesting things going on. Modular battery designs that can be repairable. This is for the bigger applications, but definitely there's some great things happening. And we can see from that 1,000-foot view, yes, it's going in that direction. But again, if you're asking the smaller companies and the independent proprietors and operators to invest thousands, tens of thousands of dollars and switch just like that, definitely going to need some resources, and we would suggest that.
So if we were going to work with, as you know, Dee's on county council, and so county folks or University of Delaware folks, that would really have to be finding some resources to help them transition.
Yeah, it starts with this, and Jill, I'll follow up in an email to you. I'll send you some examples of our workshops. Our workshops are very affordable. We do them with quiet communities through the nonprofit, and we do them regularly all over the nation. And it should start with quality information to the audience you want to reach. So I'll send you a couple of examples, ones that are specific to the East Coast. And, you know, perhaps that would be, I think that would be a good starting point.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. I know Dee was interested, and if there's anybody on this call, and I'll send out some information to folks who are on this call, if you're interested in, you know, working with folks to move in this direction, that would be very cool. Any other questions, comments, encouragements? You have a gas bubble in your eye, see? Should have gone electric.
Wow, I love it.
There you go.
You know what? When they have an electric alternative for this, I'll try it out, Jill.
Yeah, probably anything, right?
Yeah, this has been tough, but I'm gonna get my hopefully most of my eyesight back and be back on track. So thank you.
I
for
hope
that.
so. I hope so.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, there we go. Questions, comments? I think Dee came back in. You're probably
I missed it all, but I'll have to listen to the recording.
okay. All righty. Well, we will gather some information and see where we go from here. So my last thing for those of us, if you don't get an email from me and you would like to be put on our little list, please email me at jill.gomer@gmail.com and I will add you to my list. And December 20th, again, oh my gosh, that's like Christmas week, isn't it? Green Drinks will host Jeremy Firestone with the University of Delaware to talk about perceptions about offshore wind. So good night, all. Go back and enjoy your green drink. And
Jill, you'll let us know how to follow the recording?
yes, Dee, you will.
I'll send it to you and you
I'll
can
send it out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
everybody.
Thank you so
Pleasure.
much,
Thank
Dan.
you.
Yeah.
Good luck with your
Everybody have a
eyes.
wonderful evening. Take
You
care.
too.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
be well. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you.